So you want a crazy aim like this? Well, you are going to need to follow these 10 aiming tips and tricks in Farlight 84. These tips will take your aim to the next level, and your aim will get better day by day. Tip 1. Warm up in the training ground before playing. Take around 5 to 10 minutes before hopping in a match and get comfortable with the feel of the game. What I personally do is grab an assault gun. Then I stack it up with the best attachments possible to reduce the time I spend reloading. After picking all the best attachments, I just come here at this location and I start aiming on these objects one by one, trying to connect as much headshots as I can. Then I try to shift my aim from one object to another for reflexes and aim transfer. And I do it for almost 5 to 10 minutes before entering the match. Tip 2. Find a good aim down sight hip fire ratio. Of course, the majority of the time your actually will be superior when you are aiming down sight. However, this does not mean you should neglect hip firing your weapon. Having good aim is important, but that's only half the battle. You need to make yourself as difficult as possible to hit so the enemy doesn't take you down. When you hip fire, your movement speed increases, making you much more difficult to hit. When you cycle between aiming down sights and hip firing in a match, your movement speed is constantly changing, which makes it very difficult for the enemies to track you. There's also a bit of exploit you can take advantage of. In Farlight 84, have perfect accuracy while hip firing. To abuse this trick, all you need to do is start firing your weapon while a DS, then the ADS. And your first 5 to 7 bullets, depending on the weapon, will be perfectly straight. After those 5 or so shots, go back to aiming down sight and keep on repeating this cycle. Tip 3. Focus on your crosshair placement. If you play other comparative shooters that requires high levels of aim such as Valorant, PUBG Mobile, and Call of Duty, you'll be very familiar with the term crosshair placement. Simply, good crosshair placement is keeping your crosshair or vertical position where an enemy is likely to pop out. One drill by which you can improve your crosshair is by firing and moving your crosshair with these moving objects. Players have extremely bad crosshair placement in Farlight 84 because they are constantly staring at the ground, where all the loot is. Now, of course, you need to loot. However, when you aren't looting, focus on keeping your crosshair where enemies may pop out, as I don't think they will be emerging out of the ground. Tip 4. Stick with the same few guns all of the time. Of course, it is important to have a general feel for each weapon, as you never know when you may need to use it in a game. But I highly recommend sticking with your favorite guns. Almost all of the time, you check out your favorite pro player. You will quickly notice that they will almost always run the same 1 or 2 weapon combos. That is what makes them so good with those weapons, even if they're only mediocre with the other gun. I always get asked what weapons players should use, and while there are weapons that are certainly really good compared to others, that doesn't matter if you aren't good with them yourself. Tip 5. Record your own gameplay. This is probably the best tip I could give you, because it will directly benefit you no matter what your weakness is. A lot about aiming isn't just pure muscle memory, which is why you see pro players switching from one device to another and still performing extremely well. If you want to truly see your weaknesses, you need to be watching back your own gameplay with a keen eye on your aiming habit. Maybe you're shooting too early and missing easy opportunities, or maybe your crosshair is always pointed towards the ground. So you need to make large adjustments in your aim to hit the enemy, or maybe you simply have poor recoil control, in which case you need to take advantage of the next tip in this video. Tip 6. Recoil smoothing. If you don't already know what recoil smoothing is, don't worry, I got you covered. It is a unique trick that abuses the mechanic in Farlight 84 to take away vertical recoil. What you want to do to get the most out of recoil smoothing in Farlight 84 is to walk in one direction while you're pulling your aim in the opposite direction. So if I am walking to the left, I will pull my aim to my right, and if I am walking to the right, I will pull my aim to my left. I get a ton of questions on how I control my recoil, or accusations saying I use some sort of anti-recoil cheat. And that is all because of recoil smoothing and a little bit of practice learning the recoiler patterns. Now the next tip will help you even if your recoil control isn't very great. Tip 7. Aim for the upper chest where all of the heroes are widest except for Momoi. If you are aiming on the chest region, not only it will be easier to hit your shots as it is wider region than rest of the body, you will also receive headshot damage whenever your aim kicks up a little. Now if you're using a single fire weapon like sniper rifle, I would still recommend aiming for the head because they have a large headshot multiplier, but for all of the automatic weapons, burst weapons, and shotguns, I would stick to aiming around the upper chest for the majority of. Tip 8. Use a slowish sensitivity. Running a lower sensitivity will always improve your aim. Almost all of the top pro players use low sensitivities for them. Curse being now the real reason why a lot of content creators use an unnecessary high sensitivity is because it makes them look like they're doing more than they actually are. You will have better movement with a high sensitivity than a low sensitivity, but at the end of the day, hitting your shots is a lot more important than any movement trick you could ever pull off. You want precise aim? Definitely lower your sensitivity and follow the next tip on this list. Tip 9. Figure out your go-to attachments for each weapons. This include which scope to use with which gun, or which grip to use with which gun. For figuring this confusion out, you can come to Training Ground. Pick a gun and use different attachments with it, and then select the attachments which suit you better. You can try different scope with each gun, like for M4 you can use 1x, 2x, and 4x scope, while you're a K77 you can use 1x or iron sight. Not that different weapons have different recoil patterns and fire rate, which will affect how it feels with the attachments. No matter what attachments you use, you need to follow. Tip 10. Take your time and don't rush your shot. I find myself victim to this mistake, and I know a lot of other players also do. Once I started focusing on slowing down and focusing on my aim, my accuracy started to improve quickly, especially with weapons like M4, AK, and Generator. Bonus tip. Take more gunfights. Following all of the tips I already mentioned will benefit you greatly, but you can only improve so much without taking more gunfights. This means that if you play Battle Royale, you need to be taking battles more often, as sitting and looting all game will not benefit your aim. If you want to excel your progress, hop into a deathmatch and take every single fight possible to gain more experience and fine-tune your mechanic if you want to really be as effective as possible. In improving your aim, try to do 1v1 with your friend. And if you are new to this channel, consider subscribing so that you can never miss any tips and tricks. Farlight 80 for related video. That was it from today's video. See you guys in the next video.